Two-time winner this year, Long Beach and St. Louis. The question is, can he master the Milwaukee Mile? Alex Zanardi finds himself starting down in 9th position for today's race, but he has been fast during the practice sessions, and he feels they have a car they can go racing with. Let me remind you, it's Patrick Carpentier and Greg Moore on the front row, an all-four-side front row. Andre Ribeiro, Michael Andretti on the second row. There, a look at this race. 200 miles, or just over 200 miles, 200 laps. Pole sitter Patrick Carpentier at a new record speed. 2 pit stops we're likely to have, and the pit window between 65 and 75 laps.
And we're in for quite a contest this afternoon. The weather conditions couldn't really be much better. Blue skies now, a bit breezy, and that is going to cause some problems for the drivers. But I tell you what, it's a lot better than last night. Tornadoes, incredible storm last night, tore away various awnings from the infield, but now everything is hunky-dory. We're ready to go racing.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful day. Great track, the oldest track on the calendar. Started racing back in 1903. Fantastic crowd we have here today. Great colour through the grandstand of the stands that really stretch right round from turn 3, 4 right down to turns 1 and 2. A mass of colour which you can see in that picture. Some of the drivers there have opened up a bit too much of a gap. They're trying to get them closed up now.
Yeah, Jim Swintel just getting them to get a move on there, get up into grid order. Two flags there, 2 rows for the start of this race. The pace car we can see is pulling off into turns 3 and 4. They come into the pit lane, and it'll be the 2 players' cars that will set the pace coming up to the green flag.
Yes, it looks as though they're all just jostling to get into position a little bit at the moment, but there at last, as we see them come up towards our commentary box on the outside of turn 4, they are just about in position, and I think we're set to go. 26 cars to make the start here. 2 didn't qualify. They can't run all 28 here, but we're about to get this round 7 of the championship underway. The green flag flies, and it's Carpentier versus Greg Moore into the first corner. Greg Moore trying to go around the outside of Carpentier. Carpentier holding him off at the moment. They're still virtually side by side, but at last Carpentier just squeaks in front. Greg Moore has a look down, and in Michael Andretti.
Michael Andretti around the outside there. Oh, Greg Moore, what a wonderful opportunity to move by Michael Andretti. Has some great side-by-side racing here back down the field, but Carpentier leads the first lap.
So it's Carpentier from Michael Andretti, and Andretti saw the 2 of them battling, and he thought, this is my chance. He grabbed it, went straight round the outside of the man that he battled with all the way through the latter part of last year's race, and those 2 pulling away. More in 3rd place, then Vassar, Ribeiro, and then the 2 Team Green cars, Dario Franchitti and Paul Tracy.
Astonishing start from Paul Tracy. He lined up 14th. He was 7th at the end of the first lap. He's just got past Dario Franchitti. He's 6th already.
That's an amazing start from Paul Tracy. He's a winner here in the past, remember, always likes this kind of racetrack, and he is already making his presence felt as the leaders come through. Patrick Carpentier ahead of Michael Andretti. Greg Moore dropping back a little bit in 3rd position. And further on down the list, I can see that Alta Junior's 8th, JJ Leto in 9th, Helio Castroneves 10th, and Alex Zanardi is down in 11th place. He lost 2 places on that opening lap.
Yeah, other people on the move. Robbie Gordon is 14th. He only made up a couple of places. PJ Jones, though, up from 22nd to 16th. All sorts of shuffling back down through this pack. There's the first 2 beginning to pull away a bit from Greg Moore, but it's early stages. Moore won't be too concerned, and he's just settling into a comfortable place, and with a bit of luck, let the leaders effectively come back to him.
So Michael Andretti getting very close to the back of Patrick Carpentier in the battle for the lead. There is the battle for the lead, and it's the young French-Canadian who leads at the moment. Hasn't featured much in many of the races so far this year. Apart from taking pole position in Nazareth, he hasn't scored any points apart from that, and the point he scored here yesterday for pole, he really needs a good result. He's had mechanical problems which have held him back. He's been a little bit unhappy, hasn't quite seemed to settle into the pace as we might have expected, and he wants to prove here that he can do the business, and at the moment he's doing a very fine job just ahead of Michael Andretti. You're watching from on board Andretti's Swift as he chases in 2nd position.
And there is the view as they speed down the back straight up to 190 miles an hour. Just a dab of the brakes, really just turn the car, ease the car into the corner, hold a steady line through, and Michael Andretti, he is looking strong, but Carpentier, good steady pace, 21.8 around about, that's 170 odd miles an hour average, even in the early stages, a full 35 gallons of fuel on board.
That's right, and I tell you what, it's not going to take them too much longer before they're going to start lapping some of the slower cars. It looks like Arndt Meyer is the last runner on the road at the moment, and Michael Andretti will try and take advantage of that. Remember last week in St. Louis, as we look at Michael's profile, the 35-year-old who lives, of course, very close to another 1 mile oval, the Nazareth racetrack. The most successful driver out there, 37 wins to his name, and he is a hard racer. We saw how good his car was in traffic last week, and he reckoned that if he'd had some traffic to deal with Zanardi in the closing laps last week, then he could have still taken the win in St. Louis. And as they come up, gradually getting closer to the back of the field, then Michael Andretti is surely set to grab the chance of passing Patrick Carpentier.
And some super dices here. Michael Andretti there he is, and you can just see Meyer's yellow Lola just going out of the corner of the screen. They're coming past start-finish line. That is 10 laps in the books. Let me tell you again about PJ Jones. He's up to 15th place now, right behind Robbie Gordon, the two Toyota cars, very closely matched. Right ahead of them is Bobby Rahal and then Gilles de Ferran and Alex Zanardi in 11th place. So some great racing back down the field.
Right, it's only going to take another lap or so for Patrick Carpentier. There it is, Arndt Meyer in front of them. Patrick Carpentier in the blue car, our race leader. There is Michael Andretti with the famous silver-coloured crash helmet with the red stripe down it, a colour made famous by his father, as they come up to pass Arndt Meyer, and Meyer keeping well out of the way, and the two of them get through without any problem at all. That hasn't made any difference. They both go past Arndt Meyer very, very comfortably, and now they can set off after the next of the slower cars in this group. Patrick Carpentier takes a slightly wider line into turn 1 and 2, although he does come in later on up the back stretch up towards turn number 3 now, and they're both beginning to close up on Michel Jourdain Jr. That's the next one that's in their sights, and that's the car that we can see just ahead of Carpentier from Michael's onboard camera.
Yeah, and there you can see Carpentier just defending that line into turn 1, making sure that Andretti doesn't sneak down the inside, but you can't do that for very many laps at this place. And here they come up onto Michel Jourdain down the back straightaway. Carpentier gets a run and dives down in the inside, and Jourdain leaves just enough room for Andretti to go through the inside.
So Greg Moore still in third place, but he's dropped back a little bit from these two. He's around 3.1 seconds behind this battle for the lead at the moment. Jimmy Vasser is still fourth. Andre Ribeiro in fifth place, then sixth for Paul Tracy, seventh for Dario Franchitti, eighth place for Alonso Jr., ninth. Oh, look at that, Michael had a go there, and it wasn't quite enough. He just had a little sneak inside, and Patrick Carpentier was quite right in shutting the door, taking his line. But Michael really looking for that chance to grab the lead from Carpentier. Let me just tell you, we were running through the top 10 that Helio Castroneves is in 10th place now. Alex Zanardi still in 11th, with Gilles de Ferran, Bobby Rahal, Robbie Gordon and PJ Jones making up the rest of our top 15. But eyes are concentrating on this battle because Michael is all set to grab the advantage here, and Patrick Carpentier is being severely tested by one of the masters of oval racing.
Yeah, this is great stuff, and Herder there maintaining his line into turn 1. Carpentier has to back off. Andretti gets a run down the back straight on the inside into turn 3, but
they've hit, and Carpentier sideways in front of us, and he goes backwards into the wall. He managed to hold it for a long time, but he's hitting the wall hard. There's damage to Michael's car as well. What a shame, this battle for the lead that was so good, and they make contact as they tried to make the move into turn number 3. Andretti was down the inside. You hear Michael saying, I can't believe he did that on the radio. No. He can't believe what's happened.
I can't either. I mean, he clearly had a run down the inside there, and yeah, it's all very well saying that I've got just as fast a car as you, but Michael Andretti clearly had the run there. He had the inside line. You could see his nose was ahead from the inboard camera, and all of a sudden, Carpentier tries to make the move down on from the outside line, and it's really not going to work. There have to be some give and take in this sort of racing. It's very early stages here. Michael Andretti, he clearly had a fast car. It was just a matter of time before he was going to get past Carpentier, and there was the move he made. It was clean, and Carpentier tried to shut the door. Too late, Patrick.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Jeremy. I think that Michael had the run on him, and it was a foolish move on Patrick's part. Let's take a look. He had a good run. He was coming down the inside. Look at that point, side by side. I mean, what was Patrick still closing in there? It was just too optimistic, and all that was ever going to happen was exactly what happened. End of Patrick's race as much as end of Michael's race, and it's really, perhaps it's just a sign of Patrick trying a little bit too hard. Okay, you can see there just a light contact contact and then a fairly heavy contact against the wall.
Yeah, I think that what's significant here is that they were side by side, and once they are side by side, the overtaking driver has the momentum. He really has the line on an oval track. That's the way it works on the ovals. And the guy on the outside, yeah, he's got a good line into the corner, and you could see there that Michael Andretti actually drifted up a little bit, and he effectively hit the left rear corner of Patrick Carpentier's car. But at that stage, Andretti is committed to that inside line, and that is a legitimate move on this kind of a racetrack.
So, a shame, because we were enjoying an exciting battle between the two of them, but there'll be plenty more good racing here, I'm sure. Electrical problem of some sort with the second Swift. We've seen Michael Andretti out of this race already, of course, in an accident with Patrick Carpentier in the early laps, but Roberto Moreno subbing for Christian Fittipaldi, who was knocked unconscious in Friday's accident and thus unable to compete over the weekend. Roberto not having much luck in his return to racing in the series. Our leader, though, is Greg Moore, and he's coming up now to lap Mark Blundell. That just gives you an idea of the progress that Greg Moore is making. Mark's running down in 18th position in this race, and he's about to go a lap down to race leader Greg Moore. His advantage over Jimmy Vasser just over a second. Vasser in second place, Tracy in third, then Dario Franchitti in fourth, JJ Leto is in fifth position, and then in sixth place is Alonso Jr., followed by Alex Zanardi. Now Zanardi has just moved past Andre Ribeiro in the last lap or so perhaps we're seeing a bit of progress.
Yeah, Ribeiro is actually struggling. He was also passed by who else but PJ Jones, who's up into 8th place, and Ribeiro clearly struggling. We hear he's slowing on the backstretch. The handling, I think, has gone away on that car, and Ribeiro is struggling. He has a reduced pace coming into 3 and 4, much reduced pace. I'm sure we'll see him into the pits this time. Actually, no, he carries on. Strange.
Yeah, he continues round, but going at a much lesser pace. I saw Tony Kanaan doing that a few laps ago. He went very slowly past us, but he stayed out there. So I don't quite know what's going on. Kanaan is back up to speed. There goes Greg Moore, race leader, lapping Andre Ribeiro, who drops way down the order very quickly. There's Jimmy Vasser about to go past him as well. So that's first and second past Ribeiro. Ribeiro coming past the pit lane again, still staying out there by the looks of things. And, well, difficult to understand exactly what's going on with the Penske, but it's obviously not that critical, otherwise he would be coming into the pits. Meanwhile, the battles continue. It's managed to settle down just a little bit over the last few laps. But let's just remind you that early stages we saw Patrick Carpentier and Michael Andretti make contact. Both went out of the race, and we've got a chance to hear from Patrick Carpentier.
Patrick, first of all, are you physically all right?
Yeah, I'm okay. The hit was not too bad. I felt a bit dizzy after the hit, but it was okay. It didn't hit very long. I was sideways for so long that the car had a chance to slow down a little bit.
Did you see Michael Andretti pull up alongside you?
Yeah, I saw him pull up beside me on the straightaway. He was clearly beside me. And then we got into the corner, and Michael braked much earlier than I thought he would brake, and I was outside. And I pulled in front of him, and I saw him pull back quite a bit, and then I didn't see him because he was kind of in a dead angle of the mirror, so I pulled into the corner slowly, assuming he was not there anymore because he was not beside me, and then I had the right to the corner, but he tried to stay there, and I just closed the door. And sometimes I leave the door open, and today the grip was not good outside, and I just closed the door to keep my line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, a very clear description from Patrick, who obviously giving us the full story from his side, and a fair point of view as well, but still have to say that in the early stages of the race, perhaps he would have been wiser to simply allow Michael that little bit of extra space. Let him go. He could have fought the rest of the race. You don't win one of these races in the early laps, and perhaps Patrick should have been just a little bit more cautious. He needed a good finish today.
I think a bit relative inexperience there by Patrick Carpentier. This is only his second season in these cars, and at this racetrack, and everything happens so fast here. The blink of an eye, a moment's hesitation, and you're going to have an accident. And I think that's what really occurred there in that incident. Great shame. Took out two very strong contenders.
I'll tell you what, it's a good point you're making there, Jeremy. I mean, we have the onboard picture here with Jimmy Vasser, and you watch this and you think, well, it looks pretty easy. It's you're just turning left and it doesn't look that difficult. But I tell you, just watching from our commentary booth here and seeing the speed that they go past us is just phenomenal. When there's 2 or 3 cars coming around together, then these boys really do earn their money. I tell you what, racing here in Milwaukee is a very difficult thing to do. The speeds they're going at quite phenomenal. And I know even the drivers are impressed. Talking to Dario Franchitti this morning, who's running in 4th place at the moment, very competitive. But he, he sort of shakes his head a little bit when he talks about driving around here. The speeds, the traffic, everything to deal with, very, very tough. And you're watching Jimmy Vasser at the moment, still on board with Jimmy, just going past Andre Rivera, who's still struggling round, but obviously losing more and more time, perhaps just trying to stretch it to that first pit stop. They're pretty much due for their first pit stops now. Within a few laps, we'll be seeing them coming in for their first refueling and a new set of tyres. And if it's a tyre problem that's costing Andre the time, that's perhaps why he's staying out there. He'll wait until they get the new set of tyres on and then try and go quickly once again. Vasser just coming up past Arndt Meyer, and Jimmy Vasser nearly 2 seconds behind Greg Moore. I don't think he'll be too worried about that. That's under control. Paul Tracy is less than half a second behind Jimmy Vasser, and then JJ Leto has come through in 4th. JJ Leto's up into the 4th position. Then out to Junior in 5th. What's happened to Dario?
Is he in the pits? I think he's probably in the pit lane. I didn't actually see him.
Yes, he has.
A roundabout due for pit stop. He was indeed in the pit lane, and that is pretty much on schedule there. We're just about ready for schedule. So he certainly was dropping away from the battle in front of him. There is Greg Moore putting a lap onto Mauricio Gugelmin, who's running in 14th place. Jimmy Vasser right behind that pair, and then there's some more slower traffic in front of him. Max Pappas again, and then Andre Rivera, who's now 2 laps down.
So Franchitti back out onto the track, and the first of our race leaders to make his stop. He comes past our commentary position, and of course that dropped him way down the order, but as the others make their stops, that'll bring him back up. He was in 4th, remember, so we'll have to see whether he remains in 4th once everybody else has stopped. Greg Moore trying to stretch out the number of laps, trying to go as far as possible into the race before making their first pit stop. And obviously Team Green deciding to bring Franchitti in a bit earlier. Perhaps we'll see Paul Tracy coming in a moment.
Leto in the pits, and also Alex Zanardi. There is JJ Leto. Zanardi pulled in behind him as well. But here is the Hogan Racing crew going to work there. 4 fresh Firestone tyres and a full tank, 35 gallons of fuel. The fuel going in. They're just waiting for the fuel to go in. It seems interminable, doesn't it?
It does seem.
I think there might be a bit of a problem there, actually. But finally, he spins the wheels. He is away, but a little bit longer than it needs to be. I think a slight problem there with the fuel flow on the car.
Paul Tracy's already into the pits as well. We've seen Franchitti in and out, and now Tracy waits to have his full service. A little bit slow with that last little bit of fuel, but away he goes and gets back out. And there at the same time is Greg Moore coming into the pit. Now Greg Moore's right at the far end of the pit lane, so he has to come all the way down. Behind him, Jimmy Vasser's just about to come in. The number 12 car, see the Ganassi crew about to set to work. Now this is going to be an interesting battle. Hopefully it shouldn't be a problem for Greg Moore if they get a clean service. Doesn't stall it. Yeah, great move. Gets away cleanly, and Moore should be safe out in front.
Yeah, this time around Jimmy Vasser is in the pits. Here he is coming into the pit, actually making his stop there. So the speed limiter there, you can hear the speed limiter at work. He stops in front of the crew. Grant Weaver and co go to work.
Yeah, came in with another car. In fact, just about everybody making their stops at the moment. Jimmy Vasser was being shown as leader just before this. Our leader at the moment will therefore be Castro Neves, who hasn't stopped yet. Jimmy Vasser, good stop again from the Ganassi crew. Sort of, oh, look at that. And there was a battle as he came out of the pits with Robbie Gordon, as it looked. And there's our star of the show so far, PJ Jones, who's driving out of his skin, a performance the likes of which we haven't seen from either driver or team before. Well up in the top 10 so far. He's been racing very, very well. Let's hope that he can maintain that sort of performance as the afternoon wears on. So Castro Neves still being shown as race leader. He hasn't yet made his stop, nor is Scott Pruitt. Still waiting for him to come into the pits. Richie Hearn, Adrian Fernandez being shown as 3rd and 4th. But there is Fernandez in the pits. Our earlier championship leader just misses Helio Castro Neves as Castro Neves makes his stop. So nearly all of them have been in now. Just 1 or 2 more to come in, and then everything will begin to settle down. Let me tell you that Greg Moore has an advantage of about 2 seconds over Paul Tracy, which is just about what it was before they stopped. There's Michel Jourdain taking on his service. No problems for him. He gets away cleanly. And we're still waiting for Scott Pruitt to come in, actually.
Yeah, and Richie Hearn too. They are running first and second at the moment. Then it is Greg Moore and then Paul Tracy. So when the other two make their stops, the lead will revert to Greg Moore, and there he is trying to put a lap on Bobby Rahal from the overhead view there. Great shot. Look, there is Pruitt, no, his pit stop now, lap 77.
Yep, so he's managed to stretch it quite a long way, 77 laps into this race, and having been able to get this far, they'll be able to make it through easily on just one more pit stop. Fuel not quite such a big issue here at Milwaukee. Richie Hearn just coming past us. He's still out there at the moment, and he's completed some 77 laps. Greg Moore in third place as shown on our screens, but that's going to change in just a few moments. Moore at the effective race leader by nearly 3 seconds now over Tracy. Here at Milwaukee is in fact Richie Hearn, who stopped under one of the yellow flags earlier on in this race on lap number 30, and that means that he's still out in front, although once he makes his stop in about 10 laps time, it'll drop him quite a long way down the order. Behind him, Greg Moore is next up, so really Greg Moore versus Paul Tracy is the battle for, it's like the effective lead, but Richie's there at the moment, and if things played into his hands, then it could be a very interesting situation. He's about 2.9 seconds ahead of Greg Moore.
Yeah, and able to maintain that gap pretty handily, actually. Really doing a super job, Richie Hearn. He's running a very consistent pace. He had a bit of a trouble trying to get past Gilles de Ferran a couple of laps ago. He managed to do that, and he is now running, there's what, 10 cars on the lead lap. Richie Hearn, he desperately needs a yellow flag here. In that case, he would be able to make his pit stop and resume without losing a lap. But if it goes green all the way, if there isn't a yellow, he's going to have to make his pit stop. Probably, I'm not sure, 5, 6, 10 laps, something like that. Difficult to say absolutely. He did come in on lap 30, but he will almost certainly lose a lap if he has to pit under green.
So we've got news that Arndt Meyer is out of the race, so that's sad news. We're looking at the profile for Gilles de Ferran. And Gilles, the man who started his racing career very much in Europe, has a lot of European fans and great mates with David Coulthard. We're told that David might make it along this weekend. We've got a few Formula One visitors this weekend, but David, in fact, a little bit too busy in the end. We've got Rubens Barrichello here this weekend. Also present is Mika Salo. Alan Jenkins, the designer of the Stewart Grand Prix car, is also here this weekend. So a few Formula One personnel taking advantage of the fact that Montreal's coming up next weekend, and they can get out here a little bit early, enjoy some great racing here from Milwaukee, get acclimatized to the different time zone, and then move on up to Canada at the end of the week. Oh, we've got a huge pile of smoke, and it's Gilles de Ferran. Gilles de Ferran has blown up in dramatic fashion going down the start-finish straight. He was very quick to come into the pit lane exit there, which is a good move from Gilles de Ferran, but what a mighty blow-up. We suddenly saw a huge cloud of smoke going down the start-finish straight, and I haven't seen a Honda blow up. Well, in fact, I have, because Zanardi blew up like that a little earlier this year. We didn't really see... Oh, look! Ooh. Oh, that
there
looks
is Mauricio Gouge. I mean, he was a lap down there in the 17th place, and a puncture there, left rear. That's curious. I don't know whether he ran over some Honda bits and pieces or what, but certainly a flat left rear, and Gouge, I mean, he'll be hoping he doesn't do too much damage bringing that car back to the pit lane.
Tell you what, though, Jeremy, it's just what you said Richie Hearn needed. It'll drop him down the order still to come in under the yellow, but he should stay on the lead lap, shouldn't he, if with a bit of luck?
Yeah, almost certainly. Well, unless there's a mystery there, very definitely he will stay on the lead lap, and that'll put him in good shape. He's out of sequence now. He will certainly have to make one more pit stop, but so will everybody else.
Yeah, it's going to be tight to get through on just one, though, isn't it, if we're on 91 laps. Let's just see what happened here. Gilles de Ferran, there you are, going past Tony Kanaan. Wow, look at that smoke screen. Was that a little tactic there just to put Tony in trouble? Tony's been struggling enough, I think, here this afternoon as it is. Really off the pace this weekend. Disappointing performance for Tony. There again, a replay of that. Look at that blow up. Incredible amount of smoke. Great move from Gilles to go into the pits there, trying to get the oil off the track as quickly as possible. And I think the other drivers will respect that. Greg Moore is in the pits, apparently. Now, some of the leaders perhaps will take advantage of this yellow. That'll be an interesting situation. I'd be surprised if they do. There is Greg in the pits now. Is this just fuel, or do they have a problem? Let's have a look. Changing the right side tyres.
Yeah, and certainly
looks as though they were surprised, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, they were not ready for that, that's for certain. And they're just changing, it seems, right side tyres. That's interesting. We'll have to try and keep a tabs up. But a problem there with the right front. Of course, we had a problem yesterday with Gilles de Ferran, had a wheel bearing problem. I don't know whether that's it. Doesn't seem to be the case. They're getting the right front on now. He will be able to get out again now. I think he's stalled the engine. Yeah, the engine is dead. They're trying to fire it up. The pits are closed, however, so that will mean that he will have to make another stop under green. That is a penalty. The pits are closed. You cannot come in unless you have a problem. And if you have a problem, then you will have to make another stop under green flag conditions. So a critical stop there for Greg Moore. And there seems to be a bit of a confusion here. The pits are closed because the pace car has not picked up the race leader, which is Richie Hearn. So some problems there. Apparently they cannot communicate with the pace car, but they need to wave these other cars around, get themselves situated, because Richie Hearn needs that pit stop. He's going to have to come in pretty soon. He's probably got a couple of laps cushion, but they do need to get it sorted out. There is Richie Hearn and the CART safety team out there with a mop-up after the deference incident. But here is Moore back in the pits again.
It's obviously a major problem for Greg Moore, and we haven't seen what caused all this, but the man who was leading this race after Carpentier and Michael Andretti, it's something to do with the right front wishbone, which they're now looking at changing. But what drama for the team here, Joe. I mean, they had the front row to themselves. Pole for Carpentier. He led the early stages until contact with Michael Andretti. Then it looked so comfortable for Greg Moore. He was controlling the pace of the race, holding about a 2-second cushion over Jimmy Vasser, and now it's all gone wrong. And don't forget, he's only 2 points behind Zanardi in the championship.
Yeah, he's losing a lap here, so and he'll lose several more. If they're going to change that upright or the wishbone, whatever it is, they're going to lose quite a bit of time. And I think I'm pretty safe in saying there's no way he's going to win this race, but they will try to get that car back in action. Chris Schofield and the boys there, they'll be trying to get that work completed as quick as they possibly can.
I'll tell you what, though, he's had a great run this year. He's the only driver to have completed every lap that we've had so far in this championship, and that's a pretty remarkable record if you think about it. And he's been up there every time. He's been in the top 6 of every race we've had so far this year. I suppose you have to say his luck was going to end at some point, and it looks as though that run of luck's come to an end today.
Yes, indeed it has, and I guess law of averages there. It's so competitive this series, and there are going to be failures now and again, and Greg Moore really has had none, at least none during the race. He's had a few incidents and problems during practice and qualifying, but not until today in the races, and that's a shame for Greg Moore, but he'll be bouncing back next week. He hopes. Detroit, another scene of his victory last year, and he'll try and set the record straight there.
Absolutely. Well, Richie Hearn still waiting for that pit lane to open up. It shouldn't be much longer. He hopes that we're getting the message they will be opening the pit lane in a moment.
Yeah, and the pace car now has been, they have signalled, somehow communicated to the pace car that he does need to let the other cars go through and pick up the race leader, Richie Hearn, which is what he has now done. And I'm looking out here, and I can see that the pit lane marshal is putting out the green plus board, so the pits will be open this time around. This will be lap 96.
So Richie Hearn's opportunity here to gain effectively onto the lead lap. He will, of course, drop down, but he'll still be on the lead lap, and that's the critical thing here, because he was running quite a long way down in the early parts of the race. Just looking at the profile, the 27-year-old, and into all sorts of hobbies for his pastimes, leisure activities, including bowling. And in fact, he does a sort of league bowling championship during the winter months when he's not out there in his racing car. So a competitive man, as all of these racing drivers are, and finding different outlets for that competitive nature when he can't get behind the wheel of a racing car. Now then, critical stop for them, but oh, he stalled it, would you believe it? They get it fired up very quickly. Good work on behalf of the team there.
Yeah, very much so. And if you're going to stall it in a pit stop, you better make sure it's under yellow, because if you stall it under green here, you're going to lose an enormous amount of time. You probably won't even lose a position there. He will be at the tail end of those on the lead lap. He probably lost a position perhaps to JJ Leto, who also came in there under caution. But other than that, no big deal. And a new race leader, Paul Tracy.
Yeah, there he is, the number 26 car, and it's great to see him up there up front at last. I have to say it's been a bit of a disappointing year for Paul so far with the switch from Penske to Team Green. There he is leading the race ahead of Jimmy Vasser, Alonso Jr., but watch out, Alex Zanardi is now in 4th. Under caution at Milwaukee here. 99 laps in the book now. We're just about at half distance. But Paul Tracy is our race leader in what has been a very topsy-turvy race so far. Jimmy Vasser in 2nd position. And there is the damage to Greg Moore's car. The damage to the front wheel as well. And that is obviously what caused all those problems. Now, I'm not quite clear why that happened. It was something to do when Gilles de Ferran blew up and when Gugelmin picked up his puncture. They were all incidents at the same time. Now, whether he ran into Gugelmin, that's probably what happened in the smoke screen. We haven't seen any pictures of that yet, but there was such a smoke screen from the back of Gilles de Ferran's car. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Greg just didn't get caught out by it, hit Gugelmin's car, and that is what caused the problems that we've seen. So, Paul Tracy, our leader at the moment. Second place is Jimmy Vasser. Third for Alonso Jr. in the Penske. He's up there in this race. Alex Zanardi in fourth, and Dario Franchitti in fifth, ahead of Helio Castroneves, sixth, and Richie Hearn in seventh. So Richie Hearn, who made the stop under yellow, has gained a lot from that. Well up in the top 10 now. Brian Herter in eighth place, then JJ Leto and Scott Pruitt. You're looking at Tony Kanaan at the moment on board, but I have to say, sadly, Tony's down in 21st place.
4 laps down, and back to Richie Hearn in 7th place now, but of course he started 24th, and he was running, while he was in the lead, he was running the same sort of times as was Greg Moore before him. So there is the restart, there is Paul Tracy out in front.
So Tracy trying to get away from Jimmy Vasser, and we've seen how quick Tracy is on the opening laps. Only he gained a number of positions rather on the opening lap of this race, right at the start, moving up from 14th position up into the top 10, and already he's pulling away from Jimmy Vasser. Mark Blundell's a lapped car in there behind them, because Alonso Jr. is next up in terms of position. He's in third place as the rest of the field comes through. We've lost a few cars from this race already. Certainly seems to be slightly lighter on numbers now as they come past our commentary position, and Tracy trying to take advantage of some free air ahead of him on the restart to really open up a lead over Jimmy Vasser. There's the look at Paul Tracy, man who's made the switch to Team Green for the 1998 season, the 29-year-old, a man who's taken some 13 wins in his career and just over 100 CART starts he's made now. Very experienced racer, very rapid on this type of track. Won here back in 1995, has had a couple of pole positions here. Remember last year he came in looking for a 4th win in a row, and that would have given Penske their 100th victory. They're still looking for that 100th win. Meanwhile, in the pits, Maurizio Gugelmin obviously still in trouble.
Yeah, and he stalled the engine as well just to compound the situation, but he already is 3 laps down here, and he'll go lose another lap. Greg Moore, incidentally, is back out on the racetrack. He is in 19th place. I think he got to 18th with Gugelmin's problem, but he is 4 laps down to the race leader, Paul Tracy.
We gather the problem for Gugelmin is in fact a clutch problem, and that's why he's stalled in the pits. That's the trouble they're experiencing at the moment. Tough day again for Pat West. Mark Blundell's down in 15th position at the moment. Meanwhile, behind the leaders, there is a great battle going on for 3rd, 4th, 5th. 3rd is Alonso Jr. Bottom of your picture right now, the number 2 car. Behind him, Alex Zanardi in 4th place in that familiar red car, the target colours. Behind him is Dario Franchitti, teammate to Paul Tracy in the green and white car. And those 3 cars there, they're up behind PJ Jones at the moment, but they are battling for 3rd position. Alonso Jr. in fact requesting a blue flag to be given to PJ Jones. Jones, where is he at the moment? He's dropped down a bit now,
yeah.
He's down in 14th.
He lost a lap here. Unfortunately, after that first sequence of pit stops, he fell a lap down. He is in 14th, 1 position behind Robbie Gordon, who's actually just passed PJ.
There the stats then on Alonso Jr., 36 years old now. It's been a long time since he last won a race. His hobby, snowmobiling and fishing. Snowmobiling a really big hobby amongst the whole Unser family. They go off in the winter months and race their snowmobiles. They can't get enough of motorised competition of one form or another. But right now, Alonso Jr. is running well here. Not necessarily his most competitive run of the year. That has to be Motegi in Japan when he finished in 2nd place. But look at Franchitti now, Jeremy. Franchitti right behind Alex Zanardi and beginning to challenge once again. Now, I don't know if I'd like to try and go around the outside of Zanardi, but it looks as though Franchitti's thinking about it.
Yeah, he seems to think it's a good idea, and he's looking again there in turn 3. Zanardi turns in the corner. Franchitti hasn't taken behind. We noticed before, though, look how fast Franchitti makes ground on the exit of the corner. On the early part of the stint in particular, Franchitti has a great car. He looks to the inside of Zanardi, who tries to close the door side by side, but Zanardi sees it coming. Smart move, lets it go, but also he loses a place to Helio Castroneves.
Yeah, he tried too hard to keep Dario Franchitti off, and he cost him another place as Castroneves goes up. So Franchitti now into 4th place. Great racing this from Franchitti. Really impressive drive. He has shown some weakness on the ovals, I have to say. Last week in St. Louis, he spun it on the opening lap. Purely Dario's mistake. But looking at this race today, he really is driving the best I've seen on an oval. Don't forget St. Louis last year, it was one of his best drives as well when he led the race and suffered transmission failure towards the end. But this kind of track, the 1 mile track, is where you really get tested. And I have to say, Dario Franchitti is driving an absolutely storming race here. And as Paul Tracy comes past us, still that lead of about 1.2 seconds over Jimmy Vasser. And then the battle for third place still going on. Alonso Jr.'s finally got past PJ Jones. Now Franchitti's got to do the same. But there is Helio Castroneves right behind him. You're looking at Franchitti and Castroneves. Castroneves gets boxed in by PJ Jones, and that gives Franchitti just a little bit of light relief for the moment. He can continue his chase of Alonso Jr. Great racing. We've got a report of not only clutch problems but electrical problems for Maurizio Gugelmin, so he's pretty much out of it, I think, now. Meanwhile, there is Alex Zanardi, also getting past PJ Jones, but having lost those couple of places to both Franchitti and Castroneves. So let's take a little breather for a moment just to settle things down and see where we're at. 115 laps are in the book. We've got 85 still to go, so still quite a long way to go in this race. Paul Tracy is our race leader, yet to win a race this year, and Team Green haven't won a race since the days of Jacques Villeneuve. Next up, we've got Jimmy Vasser in second position. The gap between them only a second, and both of them having to deal with traffic. Third place is Al Unser Jr. in the Penske. Fourth place, Dario Franchitti. Fifth place, Helio Castroneves in the bottom of your picture. And then in sixth, Alex Zanardi. There he is, our championship leader. Twice winner this year on the streets of Long Beach in that incredible recovery drive. And last week in St. Louis when he beat Michael Andretti thanks to the great work from his pit crew. Behind Alex Zanardi, well, Richie Hearn's still running in 7th place. 8th is Scott Pruitt. 9th place for Brian Herter. 10th for JJ Leto, although JJ
just slowed down. He's coming into the pits there. That lap 117, Leto down into the pit lane, and amongst that battle there, Herter just actually lost a couple of places, both to Hearn and to Pruitt. There is JJ Leto. He had been running magnificently, but it's he looks, well, they're going to make the service, at least in terms of fuel, but there's clearly a problem there. Problem there with a side pod. I'm not quite sure what that might be, but yeah, comes the hammer.
I wonder if they've got cooling problems, Jeremy. They have little covers on the outlets of the side pods there to try and restrict airflow through the radiator. I wonder if there's a bit of modification going on there. It looks like some fairly subtle engineering, doesn't it? Ripping the side panel apart, but it could be something to do with that. There was a report of some problem. What a shame though, because JJ in the early part of this race was having his most competitive showing. Today we've got yellows, oh, and it's Robbie Gordon. It's Robbie Gordon who's wiped out the left-hand side of his car, and that looks like another heavy hit against the wall. So, yellow flag comes out, 120 laps in the books. This is going to be fun. Possible pit stops for the leaders, but it will be quite a long stretch. Depends how long this yellow lasts. It could be a long stretch. They could make it through on the pit stop from this yellow flag. But our main worries at the moment, of course, are with Robbie Gordon. Let's hope that he's okay in that steaming wreck. It was obviously a heavy hit against the wall.
Yeah, and there is the safety team. There is the mark on the wall, and bits of debris from the Panasonic Dustkin car. Arciero Wells Racing, he had been running awfully well. He'd been running in 12th place with the demise, or at least the pit stop of JJ Leto, and there is the safety team on the scene, and they will make sure that Robbie Gordon's position is stabilized before they remove him from the car. But you can see Robbie there beginning to clamber out of the car. He wants out of there. He's had enough of that.
Well, Robbie obviously not too badly hurt. Let's hope he is okay and they can get that incident cleared up as soon as possible. There, the view of the wreck of the Reynard sitting down there, and the CART safety team obviously doing a great job. The pits have been opened, and this is a critical stop time now for the leaders. This should be their final stop, of course, unless they have further problems, but they should be able to make it through on this pit stop. They've got 80 laps or so to go at the moment, but by the time this yellow's been cleared up, that'll be down to about 70, and they will be able to make that if they lean off the fuel mixture a bit and are running a little carefully on their fuel strategy. Looks as though the leaders are coming in. Paul Tracy will lead them in, Jimmy Vasser, and we're going to be able to compare their relative pit stops to see whether the Ganassi crew can do what they did last week in St. Louis and get their man out ahead of the opposition.
Yeah, there is Team Cool Green outwork. They have a fairly early pit stall in terms of the pit sequence there along the pit lane. Jimmy Vasser's crew down at the far end, and you can see the time ticking away there. 13, 14 seconds, almost 15 for Paul Tracy. That's a long stop. Great work there by Jimmy Vasser's crew.
Wow, I think they've got Jimmy out ahead of Paul Tracy. They have. So they've done it again. How do they do it? And have they put enough fuel in? That's the question. They might have put a bit less fuel in than Paul Tracy's team put in, but they've done it again. Jimmy Vasser, the Ganassi crew, have snatched a place on the pit stops, and when they all get back up to racing speed, Vasser will be ahead of Tracy rather than behind him, where he's been sitting for the best part of this race so far. Fascinating stuff, and in fact it looks as though it was quite a slow stop from Tracy, because it looks as though several other people may have got out just in front of him as well. They're just coming past us now, Jeremy, and it does look as though Tracy lost several places, so perhaps more the mistake from Team Green than a particularly sharp stop from the Ganassi team. Well, since Tracy went ahead, he had his problems down in the pit lane. That last stop, Jimmy Vasser was able to snatch the advantage, and it's Jimmy Vasser who now leads them behind the pace car. Jimmy Vasser is our race leader. Helio Castroneves is second. That's a pretty good move. That was a great stop from the Bettenhausen crew. Put him in second position. Alonso Jr. third, and then Alex Zanardi in fourth place. And Paul Tracy, in fact, in fifth place after that last stop. So it was Team Green that really lost out in that last stop. Yeah, very much so. Franchitti actually lost a couple of places right before that caution. I didn't see what happened, but he fell behind both Castroneves and Zanardi right before the yellow. And so he actually comes out pretty much where he was. He came in sixth. He actually goes out in sixth as well. So let's just reset it again before we go green. So let's just see the order here. Vasser, you're looking on board from Vasser, the race leader. Back to Helio Castroneves in second place. Then third position man, Al Unser Jr. There he is, the oval master. But Al just desperate to see a good result. Twice winner here, 1990, 1994 as well. Failed to finish last year, but there behind him is Alex Zanardi. He's been up there all day. Doesn't look as though he's got a major car advantage, I have to say, but he is competitive. But behind him, his worry is that he's got two of those very rapid Team Green cars. Both of these cars have been looking in great shape today. Paul Tracy, Dario Franchitti, they've been passing left, right, centre, around the outside, down the inside. The cars have looked magnificent today. Yeah, and particularly it seems after we broke green, initially on the restarts, on relatively cold tyres, those guys did very well indeed. And I think we can look for some action there farther down the pack as these two try and move up from their fifth and sixth positions. Behind Dario Franchitti is Scott Pruitt in seventh place. That is the Vistion Reynard Ford of Pat Patrick. But we're on the back straight away now. Rounding out the top 10 behind Pruitt is Rahal Fernandez Herder. Then Jones and Richie Hearn, 12th are the last car on the lead lap. Blundell and Pappy's 2 laps down. Greg Moore is 50, 3 laps off the pace. Here goes the restart then. Here we go again then for 71 laps still to go in this race, as Jimmy Vasser, the winner of the other 1 mile oval race this year in Nazareth, sets off and tries to open up an advantage now over Helio Castroneves. Remember, Castroneves, not the most familiar name. He's one of the rookies in the championship this year, and he raced in the Indy Light Series last year, finished runner-up in that championship, only 22 years old in that blue and white car in second place. But watch out for Paul Tracy now, because Tracy fired up. He lost out in that last pit stop. He's got to gain ground as quickly as possible. Now you've got to watch Paul Tracy to see what he can pull off. He has to find a way past Alex Zanardi, then get past Alonso Jr., then Castroneves, and then Jimmy Vasser. It's a tough order, but if anybody can do it, Paul Tracy is your man. Yeah, but the first hurdle's probably the toughest of all, Alex Zanardi. And certainly there, it's interesting, Zanardi is as quick at the very least as Paul Tracy in this early part of the stint. We've just gone green, we're just a lap into it, and really Tracy not making perhaps as much ground as we might have expected on Alex Zanardi. And of course there's a bit less traffic around now. We've lost more cars. By the way, we've lost JJ Leto out of this race. We saw his car being pushed away a few moments ago, and he's obviously had his day over. Great shame after a very strong, promising run in the early stages. Nonetheless, still a good number of cars still running in this lap. Last one running at the moment, just looking down the list, Tony Kanaan, who's in 18th position, but he is 4 laps down on race leader. Alex Zanardi then in 4th position, championship points leader and the reigning champion. And so far, he's holding off Paul Tracy. So where is that speed that we saw earlier on from the Canadian? Of course, he's taken on a new set of tyres. He's got a full tank of fuel. He may just be biding his time. He may just wait until some of that fuel's burned off. Otherwise, he'll put a lot of load on the tyres. We've already heard as well on the pit radio from Dario Franchitti that there are a lot of marbles out there. Tyres getting softer now as the development battle continues between Goodyear and Firestone. That leaves these little particles of rubber being thrown off the tyre, and that's going to make passing more difficult as we go through this race. It means the dirty line just slightly off the main racing line is going to be more and more dangerous. On board now with Bobby Rahal, and Bobby's lying in 8th place, his last outing here, and right behind him there is Adrian Fernandez, who is in 9th position.
That is a battle for position there. We are on board with Bobby Rahal. What a hiccup there it seemed coming off that corner, it sounded like. But into turn 3 there, he's running pretty well. He's certainly running better than he qualified. He qualified way back in, where was Bobby Rahal on the grid? Well, 12th, not too bad, but certainly better off than his teammate, Brian Herder, was 21st, and the two of them now are in 8th and 10th positions.
I'll tell you who has gained, though, is Adrian Fernandez, who's right behind him, because he qualified down in 23rd, and he seems to have been struggling here this weekend. But Fernandez now running in 9th place. Okay, no great shakes, but still an impressive performance to work his way up from the back of the field. And perhaps he can continue to do that and still score some points. Remember, he's 3rd in the championship. There he is in the green and red car, the Mexican racer, just behind Bobby Rahal. And as I mentioned, it is an important day this for Bobby. His last race here in Milwaukee as a driver. As a team owner, of course, that will continue for many years. In fact, his parents gave the order for gentlemen, start your engines here this afternoon, which is a nice touch. The Miller Brewery Company, his sponsor, they've been his sponsor for many years. In fact, I took the chance the other day, Jeremy, to get down to the Miller Brewery for the factory tour. Very interesting it was too.
Sample some of the wares, I hope, down there, Ben.
Absolutely.
And say, Michael Rahal was an accomplished sports car racer in the 50s. Actually drove with Porsche over here, and a great favourite around this part of the world. They're from Chicago originally, that family, and Michael Rahal won a lot of races up here in the older days.
Well, a few moves still going on through the field, but mainly as the slower cars get past. Looking at the moment as second place man Helio Castro-Neves, number 16, and there's Alonso Jr., number 2, just lapping a slower car once again as that battle continues. Alex Nardi pretty close behind Alonso Jr. There's Helio Castro-Neves. That is Andre Ribeiro ahead of him. Ribeiro's quite a long way down. He's been struggling this afternoon. But I wonder if something's going to change here. Suddenly, Castro-Neves has been held up. Look at Zanardi. Zanardi's got a run on Alonso Jr. Watch out for the target car. It's on the inside of Alonso Jr. and he's gone through. That was a nice clean overtake, or is it? Because Alonso Jr. is still with him. He's still round the outside as Ribeiro's in the middle of the road virtually. And Zanardi finally pulls the move off. But Alonso's still trying to go around the outside of him. Oh, this is fabulous. Real oval track racing. Zanardi, the reigning champion, against the former champion Alonso Jr., who at last has got a car that's worthy of his abilities. Wow, this is great stuff.
You know, last year here, Alonso Jr. and Patrick Carpentier did exactly the same thing. 3 laps, they were side by side like this. This is fabulous racing. This is oval track racing, but absolutely wheel to wheel there. Alonso on the outside, he has the advantage. Well, for this 100 yards anyhow, he comes in behind.
He goes in behind, has another look down the into the turn 1. What great racing. Fantastic. Now that is what oval racing is all about, and if you're not particularly a champ car fan because you don't understand ovals, that is why we love oval track racing. When you get that sort of side-by-side racing, 2 drivers absolutely on the limit, side-by-side for several miles as they go lap after lap, trying to gain position, that's what it's all about. And what a great display that was from Alex Zanardi as well, not so experienced in this form of racing. He's had to learn it over the last couple of years. Looks as though he's learned it pretty well.
Yeah, and he never really liked these 1 mile ovals. He's finished 13th in his only 2 starts here on this Milwaukee mile before, out of the points both occasions. But His confidence was boosted enormously at Nazareth a month or so ago when he finished second only to his teammate Jimmy Vasser, and that's showing here this afternoon.
Well, he's definitely lost a bit of momentum for the moment. I think he's taking a breather after that lot. Alonso Jr. though just goes to show that Penske is working very well indeed. Paul Tracy still behind Zanardi in 5th place, but that's given him a chance to close up, and that's an important issue there, because Paul Tracy in 5th position, some half a second only now behind Alex Zanardi. So Alex has got to watch out for that, and in a way perhaps that's why it was sensible to get out of the battle with Alonso Jr. If they continued doing that for too much longer, Tracy would have been right on them. Just 11 laps to go here at the Milwaukee Mile, and Jimmy Vasser is looking for his 2nd win of the season. Winner at Nazareth on a 1-mile oval. Ganassi team had never won on a 1-mile oval before this, but this year they really seem to have found a setup that works, and he's driving superbly. Still leads ahead of Helio Castroneves. Castroneves being told to take it easy on fuel. Alonso Jr. still in 3rd place. Alex Zanardi, you just saw briefly for a moment, he's in 4th position. Paul Tracy is in 5th, and Scott Pruitt is in 6th position, but Scott Pruitt with the Ford engine just holding on to 6th ahead of Dario Franchitti in 7th, Bobby Rahal in 8th, then 9th Adrian Fernandez, 10th for Richie Hearn, 11th for Brian Herter, and up into the points now Mark Blundell. He's had a tough afternoon, but in 12th place, that will score him a single point if he can just hold on to that, and that would make that hard afternoon's work well worthwhile.
And there is Jimmy Vasser looking to make a way past Bobby Rahal. He's got a 4-second cushion over Helio Castroneves. He doesn't need to push that hard. Castroneves is mired in a huge group of slower cars that includes that battle for 10th place, which really is raging between Fernandez and Hearn. We are on board here with Jimmy Vasser. He really just has to keep his cool. 4-second lead. He can be content, I think, to follow Bobby Rahal. Tuck in there. You don't really get a lot of a slipstream here, so not much advantage in terms of fuel conservation, but that'll be fine. A good enough pace. Bobby's running fast enough, and there is that battle for 9th place, absolutely side by side of 3 and 4.
There's a few people making pit stops, Jeremy. There's a few people who reckon they're not going to make it through. Paul Tracy has been into the pits, so has Dario Franchitti. That's interesting. And they reckon they can't make it through on the fuel. So will Jimmy Vasser have to stop, or will they just be able to stretch it out? This is still an exciting race. He might have a lead that's up to over 5 seconds, but it's not all over yet. He may have to make a pit stop. Anything could happen here. Helio Castroneves in 2nd position, Al Unser Jr. in 3rd. I wonder how cautiously Al Unser Jr. has been driving in the last few laps. I wonder if he's been really looking after fuel in an attempt to make it all the way. Penske, one of the best teams in terms of the strategy needed for a race. And Al Unser Jr., if anything, a little closer to Helio Castroneves over the last couple of laps. Still some 5 laps to go. Watch out for a car suddenly slowing down, running out of fuel in the last moment. Remember the disappointment that Bobby Rahal had last year in Rio when it happened to him with just about a lap and a half to go. It would be so disappointing to see it happen, but it would certainly add even more drama to what has been an incredibly exciting race. All sorts of accidents and incidents we've seen throughout, and we are in for a great grandstand finish here as well. There is Helio Castroneves then, in 2nd place still, in the Animax car, heading for what would be his best result, and the best result for a team in a long time. Alex Zanardi's in. Alex Zanardi reckons he can't make it, and in terms of points, it's more important perhaps for him to make sure of getting points than it is to go and take the gamble. But perhaps they will still take the gamble with Jimmy Vasser.
Oh yeah, that's a tough call. Jimmy Vasser is not out of contention for this championship by any means. He needs these points just as much as Zanardi. And there is Jimmy Vasser coming past us. He is clearly on cruise control. He was coming through here and not using up all the road. Look, you can feel him feathering his foot on that throttle. But just 2 laps to go for Jimmy Vasser.
So he's got to stay out there. Surely now he cannot afford to come into the pits and make a stop. Is Jimmy going to make it on the fuel? It's going to be so tight. He comes past our commentary position through turns 3 and 4. He comes down to take the white flag this time around. White flag, 1 mile. Can he get 1 more mile out of this car, out of the fuel tank? He can't afford for it to hiccup because Helio Castroneves is only 5 seconds behind. He's right behind Bobby Rahal, using the slipstream perhaps. That'll just help the fuel consumption a little bit. He doesn't need to try and pass Rahal. He's going to make it. Jimmy Vasser is going to win his second victory of the year. Jimmy Vasser, the master of the 1 mile ovals in 1998. He wins the race. Helio Castroneves is running out of fuel and he's going to make it. Oh, he's just across the line and he makes it by a tenth of a second over Alonso Jr. Wow, Alonso Jr. so nearly got second, but Castroneves just held on, and what a great result for Castroneves and for the Bettenhausen team. An absolutely brilliant result. Their best since St. Louis last year when Carpentier was second, which was previously their best ever. Super performance. Frank Kitty finished in 4th place.
Yeah, he did not make a pit stop at the end there. It was actually Scott Pruitt and Paul Tracy who came into the pits. There is Alonso Jr. He's got enough fuel at least to get around to the victory podium here. And, wow, what a wonderful race that was.
Superb, just amazing. And there is Jimmy Vasser. He made it. God, dear, oh dear. His heart must have been pumping in those last few laps. But he has the reward. You're back with us at Milwaukee after an incredible race. My voice is almost gone after that dramatic finish that saw Jimmy Vasser come through the winner after leading a good number of laps, and Helio Castroneves just taking second. Let's hear from Gary Gerald and Jimmy Vasser.
I think we've got a new king of short ovals. Jimmy Vasser, you did the job at Nazareth. Today you do it, and everybody on the team was sweating bullets because of fuel. How about you?
Well, we ran real lean early on. I think that's why we couldn't really check out. And then when I got behind Bobby, I just thought I'd cruise because we had a lot of fuel, or we had a lot of distance on the rest of the pack. And but my guys got me out first in that last stop, and that made the difference. And yeah, we got a great team here. There's no doubt about it.
It looked like a 9-second stop on my clock that time, and that was the key because you're out ahead of Paul Tracy and the rest of the challengers.
Yeah, that was the key. And you get out clean and you run, run out in the clean air. It's a lot. And then it's just a matter of working the traffic. But I got to hand it to my Target team, doing such a great job, and all our great sponsors. It's great.
Tell me what's happened with this team, because the short ovals seemingly coming into this year were the Achilles heel. That's no longer the case, obviously.
Well, apparently not. I mean, Alex winning last weekend at St. Louis and me taking the Nazareth, and here, now we get into the meat of the season with the road courses, and, I think we got a little bit of work to do still on that, but it's great to get some victories under your belt and get some good points.
And while the championship spotlight has been on your teammate of late, you're looking stronger and stronger now, and I'm sure you're starting to think about a possible $1 million payoff.
Well, absolutely. I'm thinking about that all the time. Not starting.
Not starting. All right. Jimmy Vasser, great job.
Thanks, Gary.
Let's go to Jan.
Alonso Jr. also had a great run. Al, I know it was so close at the finish. Did you think you were going to get Helio when he ran out of fuel?
I didn't know. I was just hanging on out there. I'm really proud of my guys. They did a great job. I didn't know if I'd get him or not. I saw him slow down coming off before, and I was already wide open. So I just want to say hello to Pat back at home, and we're on our way, and we're going to start knocking at that door real hard.
I can hear it in your voice. There's a lot of emotion here because you guys have struggled so much. Is Penske back? Is this car ready now to win more races?
I think so. Everybody's doing their job. Mercedes, Goodyear, Penske cars over in England, John Travis, Ian Reed, my engineer, Rick Reineman, my crew chief. We're coming back, and we're going to come back stronger than ever before.
All right, congratulations. Let's talk to the guy that he beat at the line. Gary?
Helio Castroneves has just climbed out of the car. The Speedway Radio Network for the CART circuit is talking with him right at this point. And Steve Byman in the truck, I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you want us to hang here for a moment, or do you want to take a quick break? Let's see. We'll get a word here from Helio.
In the end, I have to just say fuel, but was enough.
Helio, how close was it? How much were you sweating, wondering if you were going to be able to finish?
To be honest, I was keeping to Tony. Keep cool, man. Keep going. You're gonna make it. But I didn't realize it was so close. I spoke with Dan this morning. He showed me a little line, and I'm so happy to everything that went up well.
Now, they talk about how fiery and emotional Brazilian drivers are. You've got an owner that's so emotional, sometimes you got to rein him in a little bit.
Yes, I mean, we worked so hard here. Here we go, guys. Thank you. I love you.
That's a great job. Let's see if we can reach back over here. Tony B, can you lean over here and let us... How does it feel to be up on the podium once again with this rook?
Well, if we could ever get another 3 or 4 gallons of fuel in one of these race cars between Carpentier last year and Helio today, we'd win one of these things. But, everything worked out well. We just, we had hopes when Zanardi pitted that maybe Vasser was going to be in trouble, but it wasn't meant to be. But, you know, everything went good. We just could use a bit more fuel to win one of these things.
Great job. Nice to be there knocking on that door. Thanks.
Oh, for sure. And I'd like to thank my sponsor, Alumax. We really appreciate it.
You betcha.
Great present for Tom Brown as well, celebrating his birthday today, the Scottish engineer, and well done to the whole team on a superb result there for Helio Castroneves. But for all of them, let's just take a look at this replay of the finish there, Jeremy.
Yeah, there is Bobby Rahal coming across the line just ahead of the race leader, who is Jimmy Vasser. A wave at the crowd behind, and here's this knot of cars. And coming off the fourth corner behind Scott Pruitt there is Castroneves, pulls down the inside. He's absolutely out of fuel. Unser still at full throttle on the outside, and just across the line, Helio Castroneves by the skin of his teeth, less than a tenth of a second.
What a brilliant finish it was after a very, very exciting race all round, really. Jimmy Vasser, the winner from Helio Castroneves, Al Unser Jr. in third. Good drive from Dario Franchitti in fourth. One of the best drives we've seen from him, and a brilliant performance all round this weekend. Bobby Rahal in fifth place. Better for him, he's had a tough time this year, and a good sixth for Richie Hearn. Seventh in Brazil, sixth here now.
All the way up from 24th on the grid again. Great strategy there. There is Paul Tracy, late pit stop, Alex Zanardi ditto, Adrian Fernandez, Scott Pruitt, Brian Herter, and Mark Blundell the final point.
Then out of the points, Greg Moore didn't get any reward for going back out after that bent wishbone, and he had to settle for 13th. There the other finishers, Andre Ribeiro really was going ever so slowly for a long part of that race, getting in the way of some of the faster runners, but I suppose he did get to the finish. And there are non-finishers all the way back to Patrick Carpentier and Michael Andretti, who sadly took each other off in the early stages of the race. In terms of the championship, of course, it makes a bit of difference because neither of the top two in the championship, Alex Zanardi and Greg Moore, scored particularly well. Alex Zanardi made a pit stop towards the end and finished in 8th position, and that only picks him up 5 points. So Alex Zanardi now on 92 points. Greg Moore didn't score any today, so he's on 85. The gap's still only 7 points between them. But look at Jimmy Vasser. He now is a part of the equation. He's only 20 points behind Alex Zanardi. Adrian Fernandez only picked up a few points, but Michael Andretti failed to score, as did Gilles de Ferran.
Yeah, great shame there for those guys, but we've got a heck of a championship coming up here, and there's plenty of racing to go.